Traveling. I went to 19 different countries with President Bush, and I've been all over the United States, as well as Camp David and a few other really fun locations.
I think the very best part of the military was the people that I got to work with. They all came together around a common mission, and that common mission being to defend our country. And we all put that as a top priority.
Oh man, the camaraderie, everybody I met, the places I got to go. We got to do a lot of really cool stuff. Got to jump out of an airplane about once a month and get paid extra for it, so can't complain about stuff like that.
When I was in the Marine Corps, we were obviously fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan already for Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. One of the key things outside of the war that happened was the Maria Lauterbach case came to light, which is all about military sexual trauma, and basically her boyfriend killed her while she was pregnant with their baby, and he fled to Mexico, and her ashes were found in a fire pit behind the home that they were staying in, but he was never extradited and brought back from Mexico.
I served from 1989 through 1995, active duty, and at that time was the start of Desert Storm and the fall of Iraq, and then Desert Shield when we stabilized the country, and then also during that time period was the Balkan conflict with Bosnia and Serbia and those countries in conflict.
Whenever we were in Iraq in 2008 to 2009, they held the elections. The first election to where everybody actually got to vote and it was counted. It was on January 31st of 2009. That was a pretty big deal because before then a lot of people weren't allowed to vote or they were kept away from the polling sites. But we went in and basically secured everything so that no V-bids or suicide bombers or anybody like that could get in. And then also, a cool fact, in the middle of 2009, the first tattoo parlor opened up in Baghdad. So that was actually really cool. Everybody was super stoked. Everybody that we knew from Baghdad, like all the local nationals and stuff, they were all excited to get tattoos and be like Western civilization type people.
So when I was in the Marine Corps, I got hurt pretty bad. So physically, my head, my shoulder, my back, my hips, my knees, and my ankle all got pretty messed up. Sometimes I walk with a cane. I also have PTSD and anxiety and insomnia. So whenever I go to class, usually I have to sit facing the door. Even if it's in a restaurant or anything, I have to be able to see the door. I have to face the door. I don't like to have people behind me, especially in class again. But I also use a service dog, and that's been the biggest help to me.
I think for the most part, the military, I've been able to grow and learn and be stronger, even though we went through some tough times. I guess those challenges helped strengthen me as far as resiliency and perseverance. And but some of the things that were difficult for us were personal. I had a patient who turned on our clinic and stalked our family for an entire year. The events previous to that is one of my very best friends had been killed by a service member, and he too was a psychiatrist, and my patient learned about that and said to me, same thing's going to happen to you. And so we had a tough year where we really didn't know what would happen. There was even a time period when our family was essentially put into hiding, and no one knew where we were until they could stabilize the situation. So it was tough from that. I've gotten stronger from it, but during that time period, probably one of the toughest periods of our life for our family. Post-traumatic stress, I probably had some symptoms of that for some time afterward with this. And I remember one of my fellow physicians asking me, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he started calling me about once every week, and we talked for about an hour, and we never couched it as therapy or counseling, but I'm sure that's what he was trying to help me with. When I go to a movie, I always want to be on the aisle. I never want to be in the middle. And so I need a way out. When I do go to a restaurant, I don't like to sit with my back to the door. I like to sit with my face to the door. My wife knows that, and if somebody tries to seat her, she will move around, and she can have her back to the door. But I want to see where it is. And yeah, I always need on an airplane. I want an aisle seat every time. I want to be able to get up.
People that didn't serve, they don't, because I guess they just don't understand where you've been, what you've done. So they kind of look at you weird sometimes. It's not as bad since I've been out. You know, I'm learning to be more of a civilian now. Going into big places. It doesn't seem like the camaraderie on the outside is the same as it was in the military. Like when you had your friends in the military, like y'all were tight. That was your crew. And it seems like outside of the military, people aren't like that as much. They're really flaky, and so that kind of sucks. It's more of a thing to where if like I don't like people being behind me, or I like to know what's going on behind me. And if I'm out by myself, you never know if somebody's just going to walk up to you. I think you just get situational awareness pounded into your head so much while you're in the military that if you're out by yourself, especially in a big crowd, you don't have that situational awareness. So it can definitely make your anxiety shoot through the roof, which definitely sucks. You learn to have that standoff, especially when you're deployed. Like you don't allow anybody to get within like 15, 20 feet of you. You have that standoff distance where if they start coming to you, you just tell them, stop, back up. You know, you can't do that out here, which is fine. You shouldn't have to. But I think that's the biggest thing that comes from it, or why we are so worried about being in large crowds.
So day to day, it gets a little interesting, especially with the weather. My body sometimes hurts so bad that I can't even get out of bed. I live in a 2-story house, and sometimes I can't even go down the stairs or up the stairs. So I have to rely on my service dog a lot to be able to get things for me and to help me get around. But on the good days when I can move around, I still have to be really careful, just doing everyday things. But then my anxiety, there's times where I can be sitting in class and I'll have an anxiety attack out of nowhere. So I've had to really learn how to manage my mental health.
I take a very holistic approach that certain things that you're just not going to ever fully get out of your mind. You're not going to be able to walk away and forget them entirely. But taking care of yourself nutritionally, taking care of yourself physically, doing good work beyond that. So moving past a difficult event in your life and coming back and trying to maybe make a wrong right again. Part of the reason why I'm pushing so hard as far as sexual assaults and sexual violence on campus is that what one person can do to another person, that victim, those experiences can last a lifetime.
Well, I have my service dog, Bodie. He's awesome. He goes pretty much everywhere I go. And through him, I've met a lot of cool people through the Wounded Veterans of Oklahoma. And just trying to rebuild relationships and put myself out there and meet new people and stuff like that, which has been a challenge, but slowly getting there.
So the most helpful tool that I've learned has been mindfulness and meditation. I learned that when I was in San Francisco, but beyond that, my service dog has saved my life multiple times. Mindfulness and meditation helps just kind of bringing my anxiety down and helping me manage things, but my service dog has literally been there when I wanted to die, and he's always there for me when I cry or if I need to be woken up from a nightmare. I mean, he'll wake me up in the middle of the night. He knows how to turn on the lights. He knows how to wake me up without touching me. And beyond that, there's been times where I lose feeling in my legs, but he's there to help me get around. He can help me get to my wheelchair or my cane, or he can help me get up the stairs or down the stairs into the shower, whatever I need. So I definitely rely on him.
Probably my wife, for sure. During this time period when we were being stalked, we worked with special ops, and they were very, very helpful for us. And one of the skills that they taught us was to defend ourselves at a different level than we defended ourselves in the past. And one of the things that they did was take us out to a firing range and taught Paula special skills as far as firing a weapon, and taught me special skills. And lo and behold, Paula, who had never fired a gun before, was far more accurate than me in firing a gun right out of the blocks. And even the special agent said, "You are already a marksman." It was the first time she shot a gun. And so in our defense plan for our family, in case we ever had a home invasion from this stalker, Paula was the one that was going to have the gun, and I was the one that was going to protect the children. And Paula and I have two jokes that when we look back on this. The first is, she'll tell me, I'd take a bullet for you. So she was going to be out front. The second is, whenever I have a bad day at work, she says, "Yeah, but I bet you it beats getting stalked, doesn't it?" And I say, "Yes, we do." So we at least try to keep it in the right frame of mind.
Going to counseling, going to therapy, group therapy. Group therapy helped a lot because it makes you realize that you're not the only one that's having the struggles that you're having. And then obviously my dog. I mean, I don't know if I'd be here today if it wasn't for him. I was struggling pretty bad about a year ago.
So to keep an open mind and not get caught up in the VA, in the system, if you will, and don't rely on all the medications and the pills the VA tries to throw at you. Keep an open mind and coping skills, and find out what works for you, because everybody has different backgrounds and different needs to be met to be able to cope. So don't feel like a cookie cutter. Don't get stuck.
I recommend, first and foremost, use your military experiences as a strength. Don't think of them as something totally different than where you are now. What you learned in the military does translate to the real world as far as getting things done, for sure. The second is, in seeking what's next for you, I think there's a big difference between happiness and fulfillment. And a lot of people seek happiness, but happiness comes and goes. It is fleeting. It is hour to hour, sometimes minute to minute. So I encourage everyone to seek fulfillment. Do work that means a lot to you. Do work that no matter what happens to you during those time periods, you know that it's matched with your values.
Reach out to the VA, reach out to the different, if there's any type of, like the VFW or the DAV, different organizations, so that you can surround yourself with other veterans who kind of get where you're coming from. Reach out to your family. I didn't. Whenever I got back, I was definitely a loner, and I secluded myself and didn't want anything to do with anybody. So just don't shut yourself in. It's not worth it.
I really try hard to help my fellow students and any faculty or just people in general to understand what we as veterans face, and the fact that we don't want special treatment, but we are different. We don't want to be labeled as broken or handicapped or disabled, but we are, in a sense. So in telling people kind of how to talk to us and how to handle veterans, it's, we're a pretty open group, I like to think. But you also can't come in and just ask blatantly ignorant questions like, "Oh, have you ever killed someone?" That's not something that you don't want to talk about that. So, but we like to talk about our time in service. We have our own language, we have our own culture, and we are open to sharing that with people, and we want to invite people in. We want people to understand what we go through, but at the same time, it's hard because people already have the stigma in their heads of all veterans must have PTSD, and if you have PTSD, that means that you're going to go on some murdering rampage and be crazy and fly off the handle, and that's not the case at all. And PTSD isn't even a veteran-specific disorder, so it's time to have real talk.
I think one of the things I love about our Student Veterans Association here is that one of the kind of central themes of the work they do is how much a veteran can contribute to society, to our university. And It's not military then civilian. It's military as a foundational experience to be whatever you want to be in the future as far as a civilian. And so oftentimes sometimes veterans get stereotyped into one category. And yes, we do have veterans that are suffering, but we also have veterans who are thriving as well. And so we need to be able to keep everything in balance on that.
I don't know if the stigma's still there or not today, but it seems like a lot of civilians seem to think that veterans are just bad people. Like they've done, especially ones that have been to combat, like they've just done bad things and they're crazy and they're just gonna fly off the handle because they have PTSD. And it's not like that. Like, we're human too. Like, just approach us and talk to us. We'll talk to you. You know, we may have our little quirks, but who doesn't? Everybody has quirks these days. So just remember that.
Okay. My name is Megan Lowry. I was in the United States Marine Corps, and I worked at the White House doing security for President Bush during his last term in office.
Awesome.
Sure. Jerry Clancy. I served from active duty 1989 to 1995, United States Air Force. Then I was a physician reservist for another 25 years after that.
Blake Evans. I was in the United States Army, and I served from January 2007 till April 2015.